Hello! Welcome to my half rectangle triangle tutorial. I'm Jessica Steele, and let's get started. Specifically today, what we're talking about is the half rectangle triangle in our block B for the free Fastbreak Quilt pattern. It's a wall hanging on my website, jessicasteeledesign.com. So this half square triangle is 3 by 3.5 inches unfinished. And when it is put in your quilt top, it will be finished into a 6-inch block. So here is how we get started. For this tutorial, we're going to be using a printed fabric. This is Pixel by Rashida Coleman Hale for Ruby Star Society. And this is just to show with right sides of the fabric how to mark and put together your half rectangle triangles. If you're using a solid, it's not going to matter right sides or wrong sides, but for this purpose today we are going to use the prints. What you're going to do is you're going to cut 3 3/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch rectangles in each color that you're using. Color 1 and color 2. This is color 1, color 2. And you're going to make 4 half rectangle triangles in one direction and 4 in the other direction. So 2 different directions of the diagonal on your half rectangle triangles. So to get started, we're going to take one of your fabrics and turn it right side down. So for this instance, we're going to flip our color 1 rectangle upside down, so it is facing right side down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some sort of marking tool. I have this Mark Be Gone water soluble ink. There's also air soluble and water soluble and lots of other different kinds. So we're going to mark each corner, 2 corners on the diagonal with a 1/4 inch from each side, and then we're going to take a ruler and we're going to mark a diagonal line from corner to corner on those corners. So on the second fabric, which is right side down, we are going to do the same thing but on the opposite corners. So we're going to start in the bottom left and do the bottom left and top left corner, or top right corner. So we're going to mark bottom left and top right. Okay, and then we're going to mark the diagonal line the same as we did on the other piece. So we've got our pieces marked. So you'll want to do this 4 times this way, and then with your other 4 sets, you will want to do the same thing here and do the opposite corner. So we're going to start here. Do this side, and then we're going to hop over here and do the opposite corners on the second piece, which is right side down. And then we're going to mark our diagonal. Okay, once you have them marked, you are going to take one side and you're going to match up the corners and the diagonals. So you're going to take this piece and you're going to match up the diagonal here and the points that you marked 1/4 inch from the edge there. And you're going to do the same with the other side. So you're going to take this and you're going to match up the diagonals and each point that you marked that's a 1/4 inch away from either side of the piece. Okay, and once those are lined up, you are going to take them to your sewing machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of the drawn line. Okay, so now we've got our 1/4 inch seam on either side of the drawn line. So we're going to take those and we are going to cut along the drawn line. Like so. And do the same thing on this one. So now you've got your 2 separate half rectangle triangles that we're going to trim. So we're going to press these open and we'll bring them back and we'll show you how we'll trim. Okay, so we've pressed our half rectangle triangles open and we now have 4 of our half rectangle triangles. So now is the fun part. We're going to trim these to size, which is 3 by 3.5 inches. And we'll start with this one here. So what you're gonna wanna do is, this is a 5.5 inch square ruler. And what I've done is I've just taken painter's tape and I've marked off 3 inches by 3.5 inches. And that's gonna be what we'll want for our unfinished size of the half rectangle triangle before we put it into our block. So to start, you're going to take, I have a dry erase marker here. You can use a permanent marker or whatever you prefer, but what we're gonna do is, and I'll put this on a white background so you can see, is we're gonna mark a 1/4 inch from each corner in our 3 by 3.5 inch rectangle. So we're going to mark a dot, a 1/4 inch in from each side on the corner of each here. So if you can see, I've got a 1/4 inch away, so that's going to be key here for when we trim the half rectangle triangles. So once you've got that marked, you're going to take your first half rectangle triangle, and what you're going to want to do is, no matter what the diagonal, some of your rulers, you can see that have a diagonal line marked on there. You want to completely ignore that, and you are going to take and line up your dots that you just marked on the diagonal of your piece. So in this case, here's how I've got that lined up. You're gonna wanna make sure there's plenty of space around this 3 by 3.5 inch rectangle to make sure you're not accidentally cutting off too much on one side. So once I kind of ballpark that I've got enough extra room there, I've got my bottom left 1/4 inch marking lined up on the diagonal on the bottom, and I've got my top right 1/4 inch marking lined up on the diagonal on the top. So I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to trim those 2 edges off. And now I'm going to flip it over, and it's not as crucial to line those dots up this time, but I like to do it just to be sure I'm doing it correctly. So what you're going to do is line up your piece, and you're going to set those dots on there again. And this side should line up with your 3 by 3.5 that you trimmed off before. But just to be sure, you want to make sure those dots are lined up again on the diagonal. Okay, and you're going to trim here. And when you're finished, there's your half rectangle triangle. So this ratio, usually on a half rectangle triangle, you'll have that 1/4 inch allowance for when you piece it into the block. Since the ratio is so close on this one, you're not going to see much of that, but it will line up in your block when you're done piecing it. So to show it again on the other angle, so this piece, our diagonal, is going the opposite direction. So I've marked the other corners for that case. And so I've got my bottom right 1/4 inch marking there, my top left 1/4 inch marking there on the diagonal. I'm going to trim this side and the top. Pull those off. I'm going to flip it and do the same thing on this side. And there you go.